Hello there, I'm Joe, known as Davidian on AnswersInReason.com. I run the social media accounts, website, and produce most of the videos and podcasts. I'm a programmer by trade, mostly programming databases in SQL, but also VBA, and the odd bit of PowerShell comes my way. I also do a little bit of RPA as I need, and have an NLP practitioner certification. I'm one of the founders of Answers in Reason, and originally it was founded due to being bored of having the same conversations with YECs and anti-vaxxers without them being able to present anything new and having a place just to reference their common arguments. From here, if they engaged with the content of the article, it might be a worthy conversation to continue, and if they just reasserted the same thing, again, I knew it wasn't worth my time. As the site developed and I spent more time looking into things, often inspired by articles or conversations with Trolley Dave or Martain, I started to see issues within our own camp. The more time I spent looking into things like epistemology, morality, rationality, logic, and all sorts, I realized that we atheists had a lot of faulty conclusions as well, or at the very least, faulty reasoning. My goal shifted to trying to help other atheists learn more about these various topics and raise the bar past some of our more dogmatic or scientistic thinking, which ironically is often met by being called a theist. Ultimately, the main goal I have for myself is to continue learning about a variety of topics, and as better arguments or information is provided, I will hopefully continue to change my position on them. In general, I would like our articles and podcasts to inspire better conversations, not only between theists and atheists, but in general as well. I want people to snap out of their fight mentality and learn to have a discussion, think on things, and continue at a later date if you might have further questions. Not everything is a battle that has to be won, and if we don't engage respectfully, then we're rarely going to reach anyone, and in fact, may push more people away from our positions. I would also like to one day find a solution for things that people miss from religion when they become atheists, but with the community so divided on this topic, and even if we are in fact a community at all, it's going to be a long way off before we can get to any sort of conclusions on this sort of thing. My favourite discussions usually revolve around morality or rationality, but aesthetics is becoming increasingly of interest to me. I have a love-hate relationship with conversations around free will and determinism, not only due to the black hole nature, but also because people are unable to think about things like free will in any other way that isn't libertarian free will. It is a topic that interests me, but it never really goes anywhere. I dislike politics, mainly due to politicians and governments, but found political philosophy was more interesting. My least favourite topics to discuss are things like sporting events such as the Premier League or the Olympics. I enjoy keeping fit and playing sport, but I find watching others do it to be a bit of a waste of time. I love music and have quite a varied taste, from ska and metal to trance and drum and bass. I do like a little bit of everything, but rarely find an artist I like all or even most of the tracks of. I DJ for fun, which I used to do before the streams, and hope to once again when my office is sorted and I have the space to do it. But I am in no way, shape, or form a good DJ, it's just something I find fun. I used to make music too, but was never particularly great at that either. And a lot of the intro and outro music you hear on our various podcasts or streams actually old tracks that I made. And that's mainly for copyright purposes, really. So if anyone does want to make a better intro or outro track for us, please feel free to do so. I like gaming, but rarely have the time to do it. I used to be really into my RPGs like the Final Fantasy series, but I'm lucky to find 30 minutes in a month to play games at the moment. I tend to play quicker games when I have a chance, which are team-based as well, like Overwatch. It's, quick to pick up and play and have a game or two, plus you've got a collaborative function, so you get a bit of a social without actually having to leave the house. I've recently really got into cycling, and I'm working my way up to being able to do 100k in the day, but most of the time I do about 20 to 25k. I suffer with prolapse discs, sciatica, and a number of back and joint issues that do prevent me from being as active as I'd like. Due to these, I haven't played squash in about 4 years, but I'm desperate to play again. I also love swimming and being in the water in general. In fact, when I was 8 or 9, I was part of a relay team that swam for London South via our school districts, and we came first in England. I was never too interested in the competitive element though, and prefer just having fun at the beach or in a swimming pool. I love dogs, but actually I have a cat, and it's the only one I've ever really liked, and it's great to see how much my daughter loves her. One of her first sentences was, "Dax, where are you?" If you're uncertain, Dax is from Star Trek. I love my sci-fi, fantasy, comic, and horror sort of stuff, and indeed any genre that has good character development, dialogue, and stuff that makes you think. So when I say I like horror, I don't necessarily like that jump horror stuff. I like those that try and do something different or make us question what it is to even be human. I also like some movies that are so bad they become good again. You can get some that are so incredibly awful that they're just entertaining. One of those was one I picked up from a pound store called Wasting Away. It was a zombie movie from the zombies' perspective. It was, and they didn't realize they were zombies and didn't know why people were running away from them. So it was quite amusing. I am actually very fussy with my movies and TV shows, though. I only really give them about 20 to 30 minutes before I give up on them and just go, no. I have a lot of trouble finding time to watch YouTube videos myself, as when I'm not working or working on Answers in Reason, I am usually with my wife and or kids, and therefore really only have time to read articles in between bits and bobs like when I'm doing the cooking. However, I have learned to watch videos at 1.75 times the speed, and I'm doing my best to engage more with other creators, even if it takes me a week to get through one of their videos. I think there are a number of topics many of us atheists have only really learned about from YouTubers who haven't actually spent that much time looking into them all that deeply, and therefore we have a lot of misconceptions around topics like the burden of proof, also known as epistemic justification, morality, subjective, objective, absolute, rationality, logic, and all that sort of stuff. And I really, really would like us all taking the time to actually learn about these topics and discuss them more in detail. I would also like atheists to have more conversations about what we can do as a community, like I mentioned earlier. I think there should be more affirmative atheist action in the world and within local communities. We atheists often say we are more moral than theists, but actually do very little to demonstrate that. I think there are a number of big name atheists that are incredibly overrated, like Aaron Ra, Matt Dillahunty, at least when he's on the Atheist Experience, and Godless Engineer, and anyone of that overly aggressive, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm super smart, rational, and you know nothing type that never really seem to take a step back and demonstrate good skepticism. Those ones should really be avoided. Whereas I think atheists like Emerson Green, Real Atheology, Counter Apologist, Tim O'Neill, Ozymandias, Ramses II, Bearded Heretic, Cheshire, and Dallas Wade, to name a few, are severely overlooked and often rallied against because they hold different views. Speaking of showing skepticism or admitting we are wrong, one of my first articles for Answers in Reason was about how I briefly got caught up in the anti-vax conspiracy and how that came to pass. I think that's why I had such a passion for this topic at the start. I felt incredibly stupid and embarrassed to hold such a silly idea and wanted to help others out of that mess. And we can probably think the same for some atheists who might be being overly aggressive towards theists. They're probably doing so because they felt so stupid themselves, finally getting to the point where they're like, oh my god, that was such a silly belief to hold. I've actually had both of my COVID vaccinations. I had the Pfizer jab, and the first one I felt like I was tipsy for the evening and had a sore arm that I couldn't lift for 2 days, as well as an increase to my insomnia. And the second, I didn't really get any side effects at all. My arm felt like it was bruised for a couple of weeks, and that was it. I do think we have a moral obligation to get vaccinated, but I also think it's immoral to enforce vaccinations onto others. I discuss this in detail in one of my articles on Answers in Reason. I guess now at this point you've really heard enough of me talking about myself, but if you do have any questions, feel free to give me a shout and I will answer them in the comments or via DM or in Discord, wherever. I mean, it might even be a question that deserves a video or a short of its own. With that said, thank you to anyone who has watched or listened to this and those that continue to support us by engaging with and sharing our articles, podcasts, and videos. You've been listening to Joe from Answers in Reason. Have a good day.